Hi Bernhard,
Hi,
what
Carsten.
do we do in this video?
So we
Monitoring, right?
yes, so we configured the monitoring previously. Now we have a look into the monitoring piece, right? So what data
Okay.
is being gathered, and yeah, and I think you were testing or simulating some users logging on, right?
That's true, and they are still running, so we will get some yeah, churn or so. You will see different things.
Okay.
So let's
Yeah.
dive into it. We are in
Yeah.
a live environment now.
Okay. So let's jump to the environment. And the starting point for the log analytics workspace or for the monitoring is our Azure Virtual Desktop control plane, if you wish. And here on the insights, you can see, this is the point where we want to have a look. You might pre-select a little bit on on what to watch. Okay,
Mhm.
so what resource groups you're monitoring, right? Or what host pools do you want to see? What is your date range that you are interested in, right? Because it might be a lot of data that you're looking at, so you may want to, sort of tune it down a little bit, right? So
Mhm.
and I think from the usability, I think that's a good starting point because this overview page gives you um, the full picture of your environment. That
Okay.
that doesn't mean that you see everything here, which is maybe you are interested in different values. So I just want to highlight that this is a draft, or that is our recipe. If you want to further customize it, you surely can, and you can create your own dashboard with the data, or with additional data to put in. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's maybe go through the tabs as well and see, let's see what we have here, right? So first of all, you see, for example, some connection reliability events, how many connections you had, how many drops you have, and also a different view on this one over the time, right? So might be interesting to maybe select a time slice and look a little bit more into the details of what happened here. All right. So if when the connections or disconnections happened, what does that mean? What really was the issue, for example, right? Or when did a lot of disconnects happen? Okay.
Okay.
Um, for the connection diagnosis, I think it's interesting to see the failures as well, not only the success rates, right? So at the moment, and maybe we are not simulating a bad use case here, but we're just generating some login data to at least see something. So all is in green on our side, right? But you would be probably, if you would be troubleshooting it, or if you would get an idea on the health status of your environment, you would definitely also look at the red flags here, meaning the connections that were not able to successfully connect to the environment, right?
Mhm.
So it seems that our connection rate is good, um, and you probably should be able to, maybe by selecting the individual piece here, sometimes it gives you further data in order to you can drill. Then if you pre-select some settings here, you probably then can log in. And I think from our testings here, you were simulating a load test before,
Yeah.
right? However, with the wrong
With
name or
errors.
something like this,
Yeah, there
right? So
was.
this is probably ending up in unsuccessful login events because you were sort of trying to reach out to a host pool which was not really there, right? Um,
Yeah.
so that's how it would, how a simulated error could look like. Okay. Other thing is, for example, also interesting is the connection performance, right? So what is the gateway that you are be using, right? In our case, it's probably maybe not so interesting because we are only having German users, right? Because we are having a demo environment. However, if you would be on operating a multinational kind of company with a lot of users coming in from different Azure from different regions over the world, you would see here different gateways showing up, and you could sort of sense on what the round trip time is coming from these gateways to your. And also interesting, I mean, you get some values on the connection speed, right? I mean, 50 milliseconds is not an issue for a terminal server session kind of thing, right? But if it would start to go up to 200 milliseconds, 300, maybe even more, then the users would be experiencing lags, right? So
Yeah,
and
it should
probably
get better
complaining.
because short path was disabled, so we are
Yeah,
really using a
yeah,
UDP gateway in Azure. Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll see.
So on the users,
User,
the cool thing is to you could look up for individual users, for example. I mean, do you have a name for me that I can test?
you can
Like a
test your
you
own
you
user or you can use my CR. Yeah, let's do that one. No, you didn't log in?
know, maybe it didn't,
Try. No, it's
yeah.
powercourse.net. You have the
Oh,
.net
sorry.
extension. You
Yes.
remember?
So
I didn't find you. Okay, there is an AVD user
mhm,
001 to 00 something.
mhm.
Matching users be frank now. That's cool.
Yeah, it might be a little bit, a
Yeah,
time lag because
it
it's
was.
issuing a query, but at least, you need to be patient maybe a little bit. It's not an
Yeah.
instantaneous tool, right? So, um, yeah, and
Yeah,
so
here
for
you
that
are.
user, you get some information, um, how he was connecting, you know, um, in some other remote
Cool.
apps maybe used, but as this was maybe a simulated user, he didn't really
Yeah.
use that much. So, but you could at least dive a little bit
Oh, you see the
into the
machines there. Down there, you see which machine he connected. Not
yeah,
so much down, a little bit up, but yeah, okay. There, you see the C2,
oh yeah
D1. That's our machines. Yeah,
yeah
he connected to
yeah
different ones. Oh,
yep yeah. Seems like okay. Yeah. What else do we get? Is I mean the utilization I think is also interesting, right? So users per core summary, right? So I mean that gives an indication on whether your system is performing the way as it should, or maybe you need to tweak a little bit how many users you want to enable or allow on your hosts, right? Do you need to make the virtual machines or the session hosts a little bit bigger in order to satisfy the users logging on, right? So
mm-hmm.
this information can give you some indication. Obviously, it's always difficult to look at this, and directly tell what happens, right? So I think you need to have a little bit the other picture as well, like for example, information from the users themselves. Are they complaining or not? Which users, so that you can drill a little bit into the users. Hey, which hosts have they been connected on? At what time? And maybe also you need to look a little bit about over the time to see a trend
Mm-hmm.
in order to figure out, if you need to adjust the settings a little bit, right? But as you said, I mean, you definitely need to play a little bit with it to get more insights or to make more out of the data, right? But I think it's a valuable source for
Mm-hmm.
information. And you know, there might be other documentation, or there probably is other documentation out there of what you all can do, and some other examples of other people on the Azure Virtual Desktop space that have been using Azure monitoring
Yeah, I
for
think
getting
there is
data.
more information than I thought. So it's a little bit overwhelming. You have to dive into it, what it all means. But that's better than having not enough information. Yeah, and
Right.
I like
Yeah.
it. I really
Yeah.
like it.
There's another thing, like, I mean, sometimes, we used we used that logging mechanism or the diagnostics features before for troubleshooting issues with our scaling plan, right? Or understand how the scaling plan really works. So I would encourage you to use the Azure Monitoring tab and then go under logs and get yourself maybe a little bit familiar with log analytics. But there are, the idea is that you can create your own SQL type query regarding your virtual desktop environment, right? So for example, all the data that is being gathered is sort of gathered in tables, or I would call it tables, right? And then you can have combine this table with other statements, or maybe if then else kind of query language, in order to refine or to combine this query with something else, right?
The language is the famous Custo language, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, that should be in a nutshell. I am not the monitoring expert, to be honest, right? But I think it's a very powerful tool to play with if you have or if you run into any issues. And there's a lot out there in the market or in the internet to find for helping yourself out there. Okay.
Cool. So I think that covers our peak of monitoring and insight, and let's go to our next topic.